and welcome to My Money, Your Money, where we talk about all things money with the goal of closing the racial wealth gap. I'm your host, Brigette Lumpkins. I earned an MBA from Wharton and have worked at such firms as Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers, supporting both private and institutional clients, as well as raising capital for institutional asset managers. I am so pleased to welcome our guest, Gerri Lazarre, CPA, today. Gerri is an accountant in South Florida who has extensive experience working in the nonprofit and real estate sectors. And we are so lucky to have her join us right during tax season. Gerri, welcome.
Thank you so much, Brigette. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Our pleasure. We're so glad you could join us. So, I really like to have my guests talk a little bit about themselves to start because I think you're the best person to tell your story. So, can you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you became a CPA and why you do what you do?
Yeah, thank you so much, Brigette. I appreciate the question. So I started my career here in South Florida after getting a bachelor's in accounting from Howard University. And I decided to come back home because I really wanted to just be closer to home. I got homesick. And I started my profession here in South Florida with PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I started in their audit division. I really got a lot of great experience working with them and understanding accounting from a different perspective. I then went off to work for a smaller CPA firm after getting burnt out a little bit working for a big four accounting firm. And then later on, after meeting my partners at the University of Miami while we were getting our master's in tax, I decided to start a firm. And 22 years later, here we are. And I am excited that I took the leap of faith to become an entrepreneur because I really do enjoy helping our customers solve problems. And I'd say that's what we do. I think for as long as I can remember, people always think that accountants are in the profession because they love numbers or they like to crunch numbers, but it's more than that. It's about helping our clients find solutions to some of their problems, especially a lot of the business owners that we work for and work with.
Well, I mean, and nowadays the computer crunches the numbers for you. So it's really about your strategic advice, right? And your insight that you
Yes.
offer. And
Yes.
I'm really curious to know, being a dedicated native South Floridian, what particular unique challenges do you think face your customer base? You said you work with business owners and entrepreneurs um, in South Florida that you're particularly well suited to support.
Well, I'd say some of the challenges is just sort of understanding, right? The nuances of just understanding the tax codes, a lot of the rules and regulations. There's a lot of changes that are happening. And so, I mean, even recently, the whole beneficial ownership reporting. So that was new for a lot of people. And that the laws changed. They were going back and forth on whether or not you needed to report or not report. And I think that gave a lot of people a lot of frustration. And so we ourselves got a lot of phone calls as other CPAs and attorneys did, just to kind of get an understanding of what to do and how the law really affected those businesses. So it's just understanding some of the regulatory changes, some of the tax law changes and policies that take place around the world that people just have questions about because they don't understand. Either they're in their own business doing what they do day in and day out. And so this is sort of foreign to them. And so they need someone that's going to be able to come in and be that bridge to be able to help them understand a little bit more clear some of the nuances of some of these laws and rules so that they can see how that impacts them in their business.
Well, that's such a great point because the US tax code is the longest in the world, right? And the most complex and labyrinthian, and that includes Germany. And that I think is an accomplishment compared to Germany in terms of like rules and length and thoroughness. And I think having a guide who understands those nuances is critical. And what are, aside from, sort of staying up on regulations, especially as they change and the tax code evolves, what are some more common mistakes that you see people make, especially entrepreneurs, when it comes to their tax planning and preparation?
Well, what's interesting about that, that's actually a great question because it doesn't even start from the taxation. It actually starts from the record keeping.
Mhm.
So I'd say business 101 is just making sure that you just have a really good way of tracking and accounting for your transactions. And it's as simple as just keeping folders, right? Just being able to organize yourself and organize the different transactions that you have between your different customers and the receipts for the different transactions that you have with your vendors. What we see sometimes is a lot of business owners come at the end of the year or 2 or 3 years later with a shoebox. And the shoebox may have the receipts of their customer transactions, some invoices here and there, and some deposits, no bank statements. And so, obviously, come tax time, they have to report that income and those expenses to the government. But it's very difficult to put that together when you're not organized or you're not keeping track of those transactions. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that most businesses owners have. Maybe they were working a 9 to 5 where they just got a W-2 at the end of the year, and all their requirement was just to show up to their tax advisor with a W-2 in a sense, right? To prepare their tax return.
Mhm.
But then once you become an entrepreneur and you start a business, somebody's got to track the day in and day out transactions that are taking place throughout the year. So it's really the record keeping, I think, is the biggest deal, not necessarily even the accounting, because you can create the accounting if you have solid records. But I think
Right.
definitely the organizational part of it is difficult for most people when they start off.
It really surprises me to hear that people still show up with a shoebox full of paper because it's 2025. There's so many technological tools for record keeping or bookkeeping or transaction tracking. Even if you're just for your expenses using a credit card, you don't have to get mail statements. You can go online and pull statements with that are very detailed records that help you organize yourself. So, what are some of the barriers to adopting these tools? Because I feel my knowledge or my impression is that they've gotten cheaper and more accessible and have proliferated, and there's lots of competition. So people have lots of options for implementing these tools. I do know with transactions sometimes, like Square, for example, there are lots of fees. Is that something that makes people reluctant to adopt tools, especially for receiving payment? Why aren't people using easily, readily available technological tools to help with their record keeping?
So I'll say it usually happens the first to 2, 3 years of starting the business, right? So someone has a great idea, they start a business. Sometimes they're probably even working a 9 to 5 in the initial stages. So that maybe they're juggling a lot. And most people, when they start a business, they're great in something, right? Maybe you're a great technician in construction or janitorial or whatever the profession is, maybe even an attorney, right? Because so everyone has this problem. It doesn't matter what type of business it is. We've seen this problem with almost everyone.
Mhm.
So when they start off, they're really great at what they do, and they're honing in on that talent and that skill. And that's what they're focused on, right? And even when you start a business, it's more than just record keeping. You're
Mhm.
doing marketing, you're doing sales, you're having to manage customer service. And all of that can be new and a lot all at one time. And what I find is, although technology and software and tools such as QuickBooks or Square may exist, they may not utilize it initially. They're not thinking about it initially when they first start off, or they're not consulting with someone initially to kind of get an understanding of some of those new steps and processes that they need to implement into their business. And 9 times out of 10, most people, they don't go after and look for or seek an accountant or a CPA or someone that manages taxes for businesses until maybe the second or third year. They try to use the person who they were utilizing initially, who was
Mhm.
doing their personal income tax return. And
Mhm.
that person may not necessarily be well versed in being able to consult or advise on business transactions. So it's 1 or 2, 3 years down the line when they realize, wait a minute, I need to get this stuff in order. I just don't think it's the priority. That's what I see. It's not necessarily that these tools don't exist, and maybe they don't know that they exist. When you first start a business, you don't know anything about QuickBooks, even though I think that's one of the best inventions out there. I love that software. It's great for
Right.
small businesses, and I'm not paid. I'm not endorsed. I'm not endorsed, but it's such a great tool for small businesses. And a lot of them don't use it until maybe the second or third year when they start to really understand that they really have to do better record keeping and tracking their transactions to be able to produce that annual tax return.
Okay, that's really enlightening. I wouldn't have figured that in 2025 people are waiting a couple of years to use tech
Mm.
to enable the record keeping for their businesses. But I have more questions for you. In the meantime, however, we need to take a break to pay the bills. So stay right there. We'll be right back.
All right, thanks.
with dreams, talent, love. At the Children's Trust, we are dedicated to nurturing the potential of every child and family with hundreds of trust-funded programs. Find a program at thechildrenstrust.org.
I grew up down here in South Florida, so for me, it's a little bit more personal.
For the Mesman and Dover Law Firm, it's about community.
For us, South Florida's our home. You all are our people.
Our family, our future.
The difference we'll make for you, your loved ones, your kids, matters. Because to us, it's personal.
If you need us, call us 24/7 at 866-954-MORE.
That's 866-954-6673. The Mesman and Dover Law Firm, youraccidentattorneys.com.
Great seeing you all. We need to do this more often.
Will you be paying separately or together?
Oh, you can put it together.
Oh, no, give me a second.
Hold up, I got this. I'll get the reward points.
Well, I have early pay, so this time it's on me.
My AI insights say that I have room in my budget, so I'll pay.
Well, I got all that and more with the One Love card from One United Bank.
Wait, the One Love card?
Yes, with the One Love Visa debit card, I got a full suite of digital services from the nation's largest Black-owned bank.
Well, how do I get one?
It's easy. Just go to oneunited.com.
Okay. Kristen's got the One Love card and the check.
When it comes to banking, One United Bank is where I want to be.
Get ready to groove at this year's Juneteenth Juke Joint on June 7th at 7:30 p.m. Enjoy live music by the W's, beats by DJ Cardi, visual art, and more. Get your tickets now at archcenter.org.
So thank you for sticking around. We are here with Gerri Lazarre, CPA, talking about how she helps business owners optimize their tax planning and also works with them on audit, advisory, and staffing. So I wanted to talk a little bit more outside of your tax advisory practice, what other business lines you advise clients on.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So, Tri-Merge Consulting Group is a full-service CPA firm. So, outside of just the accounting and tax services, which we traditionally provide to our customers, we also have an audit practice, and we service not just nonprofits, businesses, and individuals. We also service the governmental sector. We provide, much like most businesses have an internal accountant, governments have internal accountants as well, but at times they need to hire an auditor to come in and do an external review or an examination of their records. And so we also do audits for businesses. We do audits of local government agencies, and that's some of the other services that we provide outside of some of the staffing work that we do.
Okay, so basically, if you're getting audited, you're in trouble, but you choose to do a financial audit.
Well, I want to look at it a different way. So if you're getting audited and you have a positive result, you're going to get that $5 million loan, right?
That's right.
And also government agencies. So for example, we're in the state of Florida, there's Florida statute that requires local governments to get audited. So all of our cities and our county agencies are required to have an audit done annually because they have a responsibility to be able to demonstrate to the public that the numbers are accurate, they're validated, and they have everything is straightforward. So there's a requirement even at the governmental level as well.
So speaking of government, that's a great segue to my question. Still sticking with the theme of audit, but more so on the tax audit by the IRS theme or by a state taxation authority. What changes in the IRS now, as far as staffing levels and the philosophy of the current administration, do you think will have an impact on people's audit risk? Because intuitively, it seems like audit risk is going to go down. But do you have any concerns about the power and authority of the IRS being used selectively, and in particular, because this is a Black audience, right? And do you think that there's risk of people who have thriving Black businesses being targeted by the IRS?
I hope that is not the case. What I will say is, with the change in administration, there's been a lot of changes at the partner in Treasury as well as many other agencies, right? And so, but a lot of the job loss, I think there's a lot of concerns for individuals that maybe their refunds will take longer for them to get, or there may be more exposure for them as a result of that. But I'll say one of the things that the IRS has been trying to do for the last decade is modernize, right? So they've been trying to automate, and you can see that in a lot of the things that they've been coming out with. They're trying to modernize and trying to automate to make it more efficient. So I think from that perspective, the modernization aspects of it will allow people to be able to file without a problem. But what's going to become more difficult is if you need assistance, right? If you need support, if you need to call that 1-800 number and you need to speak to someone to help you understand something. So again, it goes back to, getting having the clarity that you need, understanding a tax law, understanding a tax rule. If you want to maybe get someone to interpret what a tax letter that or notification that you received is saying, and you want to contact the IRS, that I think is going to be difficult. I think they're definitely going to have some concerns with being able to manage.
I think that managing your audit risk is really a part of being a business owner, right? And so one of the things that I think proliferates when you have times of uncertainty is scams, right? We get text messages, we get emails. Can you lay out what is a legitimate communication from the government with respect to your tax situation that a business owner or an individual should respond to, and how to respond, and if they're in doubt, what they should do if they receive something? Because I think especially now that we're in tax season, that is the time of year that you're going to see more phishing attempts, et cetera, related to tax liability.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question too, because one of the things that we've seen is there's been a lot of identity theft. And I think people just have to be careful about anywhere, just, outside of just taxes. When you're going to a medical facility, right? You're going to the doctor's office, and somewhere where they're asking for your personal identifiable information. Just be very careful where you share your information, because that's where you see a lot of identity theft taking place. One thing I will say about the IRS is that they will never email you. They never email you. So if somebody is responding to you by email, sharing that they are from the IRS, it is false. And I have a lot of customers forward to us some of the email notifications that they receive, and they may say, "Gerri, should I open this? I just got this in an email," and I'll say, "Don't open it. That's fraud." The IRS never speaks to anybody by email. So I will say, if you ever receive any kind of scam or phishing scam, do not open it up. It is not the IRS. The IRS normally always they always write to you, right? They're always going to provide a notification to you by mail. The other thing that you can do is you can certainly give them a call. So I always recommend clients to either call or put it in writing. Putting it in writing is always a great way to be able to validate it and get some of the questions that you need answered.
Yeah, okay, that's really good to know, because I think that most people don't know that the IRS will not send you an unsolicited email, and that they're going to write you.
They're going to write you.
We have more questions for you, but let's take a moment to pay the rent, and we will be right back.
All right, thanks.
Dreams, talent, love. At the Children's Trust, we are dedicated to nurturing the potential of every child and family with hundreds of trust-funded programs. Find a program at thechildrenstrust.org.
Great seeing you all. We need to do this more often.
Will you be paying separately or together?
Oh, you can put it together.
No, give me a second.
Hold up, I got this. I'll get the reward points.
Well, I have early pay, so this time it's on me.
My AI insights say that I have room in my budget, so I'll pay.
Well, I got all that and more with the One Love card from One United Bank.
Wait, the One Love card?
Yes, with the One Love Visa debit card, I got a full suite of digital services from the nation's largest Black-owned bank.
Well, how do I get one?
It's easy. Just go to oneunited.com.
Okay. Kristen's got the One Love card and the check.
When it comes to banking, One United Bank is where I want to be.
ready to groove at this year's Juneteenth Juke Joint on June 7th at 7:30 p.m. Enjoy live music by the W's, beats by DJ Cardi, visual art, and more. Get your tickets now at archcenter.org.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we are here with Gerri Lazarre, CPA, talking about accounting and taxes. And one of the things, so my mother married a CPA who had an audit and tax firm when I was in my 20s. And when I was a kid, I used to switch out the pages in the tax book for him, and he would give me $20. This way before they started dating. And so I've had a real appreciation for how accounting firms work and taxes and all that stuff all this time. And one of the things he told me, so he had to sell his business because he didn't have children of his own, and there was no successor because there's a lack of people going into the profession. Can you speak to that and why you think that is? I know the CPA is very, very big hurdle, but there are other professions that have big hurdles that people are still entering. So why are people not going into the accounting profession?
That's a fair question, and I think we have to bring the sexy back, and I think that's part of the problem too. So there's over, like, from the last time I checked, there's over 650,000 CPAs, right? And in the next 15 years, 75% of them are going to be retired, right? So you're losing, the baby boomers are leaving, and so you have to keep your funnel filled, right? Just like in when you're targeting your customers, you have to keep your funnel filled. And I think the accounting profession just hasn't done a great job in terms of marketing the profession over the last few years. However, because of what's going on and the fact that we're losing a lot of our accountants because of retirement, they're starting to pay attention and take a look at some of the things to make changes to the profession. I'll say in the past, most people went into the accounting profession because of job security, right? Really good career advancements. But now what's happening, the youth kind of feel like, well, the long hours. So it's marketed as if it's a profession that there's a lot of long hours. There's a hurdle to become a CPA. You had to have 150 hours, which meant you had to get a master's degree before you could even sit for the CPA exam. Not everybody, less than 20% of the people that take the CPA exam pass the CPA exam. Also, too, I'd say in our profession, maybe 50 to 60% of the people who start off are women, but by the time you get to partnership, there's less than 20% of women in the profession, and less than 5% of them are even minorities, which is Asian, Black, as well as Hispanic, not just Black women. And so because of that, you see people not necessarily going into the profession. And so one of the things, and also too, I think AI and technology and automation is also another reason why you have the youth not going into the profession, because a lot of, I guess, the marketing behind it is, your work is going to get automated. There's not going to be a need for you, right? But I think what's going to happen is, yes, automation will come and that will happen. But I think the work that we do will change. We'll be more consultants and advisors and not necessarily number crunchers as we're thought to be, right? They also, just like we're modernizing systems and tools and processes and ERP systems, we have to also modernize the accounting profession, right? We have to, I think, market it a different way. We have to get to the youth a little bit earlier, maybe in high school. And I'll say that's how I came into the accounting profession. There was a woman in my 11th grade year that really got me excited about it. And so I decided not to become an engineer and go to accounting because of that, right? And also, too, we're competing against the finance majors industry. We're also competing against the technology industry. And so we've got to find a better way to market the industry a little bit differently. And I think they're trying to do that. Like, one of the things that the profession is doing is that they're trying to make changes to the rules for the CPA exam. They're changing the entry compensation level for some of the students that are coming out of college. Also, we used to hire traditional accountants, and now people are starting to hire students from other majors. I'll say with our firm, we hired 4 years ago someone with a physics major. And that was the first time we ever brought on somebody that was outside of the traditional accounting or finance track. And I'll say that was one of the brightest persons that we've ever had within our team, because he understood systems, he understood tools, and now accounting is no longer just a manual process. It's automated. It's inside of a system, inside of technology. There's tools and ERP systems. And so because he had that background, he was able to kind of complement our team. So I think we have to start looking at accounting a little differently and start to market it to our youth a little bit earlier.
Well, you need like a Snapchat and a TikTok account, and you need to show videos of why accounting is lit, and that will get people excited.
Yeah, I agree with you. You got to market it differently. They got to get on social media.
That's
Like
right.
I see all these other professions being marketed, but I don't see the CPA profession. So they're
Yeah,
making
it's missing.
changes,
It's missing.
but there's more to do.
So we just have a couple minutes left. I want to use just one last question for you. I'm really curious to know. I mean, you said that Tri-Merge has a diversified business line. What's next for Tri-Merge, and how can people reach you? Because it's tax time. People are looking for someone to help them prepare their taxes.
Okay, thank you so much. Great question too. Well, we realized that because of the question that you just asked about our profession, that we need to grow through acquisition, because it's becoming very difficult to find those students coming out of the the universities with accounting degrees. We're not finding them. We're finding students in many other majors. So what we're doing is we're going to grow through acquisition. We're looking at some of those retiring CPAs, as I had mentioned before. Over 75% of them are looking to retire. So we're actually going to grow that way by acquiring some of those practices, and we're going through due diligence to go through that process. We are also working in the federal government landscape. So Tri-Merge has become a federal government contractor. So outside of our traditional CPA services, where we do accounting, audit, and tax services, I shared before, for the entrepreneurs, the government, and for individuals, we are pursuing an avenue in federal contracting. And so we have a DC office that we opened up, and we are partnering with other federal government contractors to pursue work with the federal agencies. We have done some work in the past, and we're going to continue that stretch of it so that we could diversify our target customer and our customer base from that perspective.
We just really appreciate you joining us, and to our audience, thank you so much for being here with us. Let's continue to work together to close that gap.